We have brand new information about the man who police say opened fire on the Florida State campus, killing 2 people and injuring several others. I just got this document that shows what the alleged shooter wrote when he applied to be part of the Leon County Sheriff's Youth Advisory Council, what he says about race relations and why he feels it's important to the safety of his community. We're also learning more about the shooter's alleged troubled childhood and strong words from his biological mom's side of the family about the parents who had custody of the shooter, why she reportedly calls them, quote, rotten. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Police just gave us an update on the alleged Florida State shooter. This is Phoenix Ikner. He's 20 years old. He is a student at Florida State. Police say on April 17th, he opened fire just before noon on the Tallahassee campus near the Student Union. Police say he killed 2 people and shot 5 others. Ikner was shot by police when they said he would not listen to their commands. I reached out to Tallahassee police for an update on this investigation, and they told me that Ikner is still in the hospital at the time of this recording, and he was shot one time by police in the jaw. Police say Ikner is in the hospital with significant injuries, but is expected to survive. It is unclear how much longer he will be in the hospital. Police say that will be up to the medical professionals in the hospital who are overseeing his care. When he is released, Ikner will be formally charged. Police say they can't speak to the specific charges, but they will be up to and include first-degree murder. On the day of the shooting, the Leon County Sheriff said that Ikner is not cooperating with their investigation. And what came as a shock to so many, when he was identified, the sheriff said he was the son of one of his deputies.
The shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Ikner, and he's the son of a Leon County Sheriff deputy. Our deputy Ikner, has been with the Leon County Sheriff's Office for over 18 years. She has a tremendous job that she's done. Her service to this community has been exceptional. Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. And we will continue that investigation into how that weapon was used and what other weapons perhaps he may have had access to. The alleged shooter was also a long-standing member of the Leon County Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council.
Ikner's stepmom, according to the sheriff, is Jessica Ikner. She has served nearly 20 years as a Leon County Sheriff's deputy. Last year in March, she was an Employee of the Month, but the sheriff says it was one of her guns used in the attack, allegedly by her stepson. The sheriff's office says that Deputy Ikner took personal leave in the wake of the news. She is most recently a school resource officer at a middle school. That's according to local media. The sheriff says that the gun that was used in the attack was a personal weapon of Deputy Ikner. We have gone through dozens of court records related to the family of the shooter, and those records show that as a child, he was in the middle of a years-long custody dispute. This is a picture of the shooter's biological mom. Her name is Anne Marie Erickson. This is a picture from the Leon County Clerk's office. It's part of an unrelated case from back in 2013. We found this 2015 lawsuit that was filed by Phoenix biological mom Erickson, and we went through the dozens of pages of documents that detail a tumultuous divorce and custody battle involving the alleged shooter when they were young. The name listed as a plaintiff is Christian Gunnar Erickson. It has been reported that the alleged shooter changed his name to Phoenix Ikner from Christian in 2020 to have a name associated with his biological dad's family, Christopher Ikner, who is married to the LCSO deputy that the sheriff named in the news conference. I want to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's Law&Crime YouTube takeover. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm with more than 1,000 attorneys and a history of winning. Just in the past couple of months, they were able to secure a $9.3 million verdict for a car crash victim in Florida, $5.6 million for a car accident victim in Atlanta, and $1.8 million in Kentucky. And in that case, the insurance company was only going to offer $5,000. So even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to file a claim. You can do it on your phone with just 8 clicks. So if you're hurt, head to forthepeople.com/takeover. You can also use the link in the description of this video or scan the QR code on your screen. Now, the shooter's biological mom claimed in the lawsuit that Phoenix was the victim of psychological and emotional abuse from the time he was 11 years old. The suit demanded damages that would go into a college fund for the minor who would grow up to be the FSU shooting suspect, Phoenix Ikner. According to Leon County records, this case was eventually dismissed. We also found this document filed in Leon County that shows in 2016 the shooter's mom was convicted of a charge of removing a minor from the state in failure to return a minor. Erickson spent 30 days in prison and was put on 2 years probation. Erickson has been active on social media. We looked her up on Facebook and we saw this post that says, quote, "Love being my son, Christian Gunner, in parentheses, Phoenix, mother." A big shock in this news conference, and as you heard the sheriff say, is that the alleged shooter was known to the sheriff's office, but in a good way. He was a member of a youth advisory council. The Leon County Sheriff's Office Youth Advisory Council is a group that's supposed to be a bridge between the law enforcement agency and the young people in the community. We just got this copy of Phoenix Ikner's application to be a member of the Youth Advisory Council when he was still in high school. In the 2021 document, Ikner says that he wants to be a member of the council because, quote, "I can try and help Tallahassee become one of the best places for teenagers to live, grow up, and plant family roots. And, quote, I would like to meet other youth that want to live in a safe community." The application then asks him a question about one issue of importance to the country, to which he replies, race relations. He says, quote, "I am passionate about this issue because it is a driven factor in the political landscape of today. For example, at my school, there's a clash between the races and that each race feels the opposite race is ignorant. There is no communication or dialogue between them. I believe that race sensitivity should go both ways. We don't need to focus on one race being better or need different treatment than another. This breeds issues within the classrooms at my school and adds fuel to the fire. I think that the Youth Advisory Council could help bridge this gap/issue." The people who knew Phoenix Ikner in class feel very differently about him based on his alleged beliefs. USA Today spoke to a college classmate who said that Ikner made it clear in class that he had guns. And the student went on to say that, quote, "It's so sad and so shocking. Then to see it was him, I'm sadly not surprised." Phoenix's biological grandmother had strong words for the side of the family that raised him heading into college. 79-year-old Susan Erickson said that Deputy Ikner and her husband, Phoenix's biological dad, were, quote, "rotten and, quote, bigoted people." She also said that she and the shooter's mom hadn't seen the shooter in 10 years. At this point, it is unclear what the alleged motive was for the attack. And again, authorities say that Phoenix Ikner is not cooperating with their investigation. Join us now to talk about this case from Tallahassee, Florida, is criminal defense attorney Kathleen Bogenschutz. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know that this has been just a very difficult time in your community. At this point, based off the suspect not cooperating with authorities, he's still in the hospital at the time of this recording. What does this investigation look like?
So at this point, I think that we're pretty clear on who did it. It's unclear to me how long he's going to be in the hospital. I think we got some information that he was shot in the jaw. And when you think about it, that is one being shot in the mouth area is a difficult place to deal with because you've got facial surgery, but you also have the possibility for infection with the mouth there. So I have no idea when he's going to be released, and we should expect to hear from TPD at the time he's released. He hasn't been booked yet.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating that he was shot there, yet he was able to say enough that police knew he wasn't cooperating with the investigation. What does that tell you? Can police, that he would even be in the right state of mind in that moment to say that he wants a lawyer, that he's not going to cooperate with police?
I mean, he may have written something too, and I don't know. We know that he's from a law enforcement family, so it's entirely possible he had his wits about him to the extent that he was able to get that out. Or I mean, he could have written something. If I don't know how bad the injury is and if he's even able to speak.
Yeah, he's expected to survive. He's expected to eventually face some very serious charges for what police say he did on the FSU campus. Um, what was the moment like for you, knowing that community? You see the sheriff at the podium at this news conference, and he not only says the name of the suspect, but then says his mom is a longtime deputy and says her name publicly to everyone trying to figure out what happened.
So I'll tell you, my mom was up here visiting me. She's a former prosecutor. I'm a former prosecutor, and my husband is also a former prosecutor. And we're all sitting in the room together. And as the sheriff was speaking, you could hear us all, the sharp at the same time, all three of us at the same time with the gun and the deputy and the. I cannot imagine what that family is going through right now.
We've seen mass shooting cases where parents get in trouble because their children had guns. I think in Georgia, in the Winder case with the Grays, the father is facing charges in that. People remember the Crumbly case out of Michigan for the school shooting that happened there. But in this case, Phoenix Ikner is 20 years old. He's an adult. The sheriff said that he used one of his mom's guns in the shooting. What type of trouble could she be in?
Well, I understand that she may have hired an attorney, which is something I would have recommended that she do anyway. If only for it's not just for criminal aspects of this; it's for law enforcement certification, depending on what comes out in this investigation. Um, but so Florida has some very loose gun laws. He is not a minor, which is how you could potentially end up getting in trouble if you're leaving guns out around minors. But there's also the thought that maybe everybody who knew this kid thought that he had problems, and leaving a gun out around this person is possibly negligent. I don't know that. I don't know how the gun was being kept. I don't know if there was a safe in the house and he just was able to get in there. I mean, humans are very, we're very resourceful things. So he obviously planned this and put this together. Getting his hands on a gun was part of it. Uh, but as far as what she could face, I do remember hearing the sheriff saying that she was on voluntary leave because of this scenario, and that she had been reassigned from her original position as a school resource deputy to criminal investigations, just to kind of give her a little bit of space on this. So I don't think anybody should jump to conclusions prior to hearing all the facts. They were very transparent at the beginning of the investigation. As soon as they knew it, and I mean, they said it into the. I was shocked that they put out that much information at the beginning of the case, and that they were aware of everything that soon after the shooting. I think the press conference was at 4 p.m. and the shooting was at noon. So they had nailed things down pretty quickly after that. And just to go on a tangent here,
Yeah.
I was a prosecutor in the Broward State Attorney's Office when Parkland happened, and I remember my heart dropping like through my toes when I was watching the surveillance video of the police officer that didn't go in. And
Right.
I cannot say enough good things about FSU PD and the way that they handled this. When you consider how large the campus is, there are buildings everywhere. There are sounds echoing off of buildings. They were able to find this guy and neutralize him very, very fast.
They were.
So
And
I,
you think
yeah,
too, I was going to say, just from your experience in Parkland and you think back to Sandy Hook, I mean, many will go as far back as Columbine in Colorado, and you just see how police now they respond to incidents and how quickly they were able to do it. I think it was within 10 minutes that the situation was taken care of, which certainly feels like a lifetime if you're someone who's involved in that situation, like so many people were. But it seems that they responded in the way that you would hope your campus police would respond to a situation like this. Phoenix Ikner has, to say the least, a challenging upbringing, not to put sympathy on someone who would do something like this, according to police. But what stands out to you at this point? And I think back to the Parkland situation and the family issues that that shooter had. And then in this case, I mean, we go through Leon County court records, and it will tell you a lot about the challenges, the challenging households that this man was part of from a young age.
Yeah, and blended families are never easy. Yeah, there's always going to be some bumps in the road, but this was particularly, I think, a particularly vicious custody battle. I know his mother was accused of kidnapping him to Norway. He changed his name after that incident. And it's not like he went into that incident with the parental kidnapping issue. It's not like he went into it a blank slate. I mean, there's information all over the court filings that he had mental health issues even before that. So one of the things that you'll hear in doing threat assessments and mental illness type things in the law is, genetics loads the gun and experiences pulled the trigger. And it's probably a terrible explanation considering what we're talking about today. But we had somebody who was not 100% to begin with, and then went through all of these stressful situations. It does not excuse a single thing that he did, but it might inform what kind of punishment is sought against him. So this charge would be eligible for a death penalty case. The aggravating factor that I see immediately is the risk of death or serious bodily injury to a great number of people.
Right.
So that would be an aggravator that, I mean, you could prove that pretty quick.
For people who know in Florida that death penalty is a reality there. What is the bar when you talk about an aggravated factor? In this case, he opens fire on a campus. It's unclear whether he was targeting anyone or just wanted to inflict death. Typically, in these cases, how likely is it that he'll face the death penalty?
Um, I So I'm not in that office anymore. I was in the office of the state attorney here. I don't even know if that office is going to keep this case. If they feel like maybe they're too close to FSU, maybe there's too many people in their office that have ties to FSU. And we'll have to see if they feel comfortable keeping it. But I mean, usually it's a round table decision. First of all, you have to have a qualifying offense. And in this case, it'll be a first degree murder. I think it's pretty clear that that's what we're dealing with here. There's really not any other factors that we could possibly point to that, might knock it down to second degree or something like that. Or manslaughter, like, oops, I accidentally pulled the trigger on a gun and I didn't mean to. So I think that we are dealing with murder one here. And then there is a whole list of aggravating factors, and a jury needs to find one of them unanimously in order to be able to recommend a death sentence. Now, if you'll recall in the Nicholas Cruz case, he pled guilty at the beginning of, so we didn't have a guilt or innocence or a guilt phase of the trial. Death penalty trials are bifurcated, so split in half. The first half is guilt or innocence, and then the second half is a penalty phase. And usually there's an attorney at all times preparing for the penalty phase on the defense end, looking for mitigation. And you'll have mitigation specialists that are retained by defense teams, investigators that are retained by defense teams. And you saw this in the Nicholas Cruz case where they, were interviewing Mr. Cruz's mother, people who knew her about the drug and alcohol use while she was pregnant. Both of his parents predeceased or were deceased at the time of this incident. So they were going back to people who knew them and knew the situation of the family. They utilized his brother just to try to get the scenario together. And while a case can qualify for the death penalty, it is the state's decision as to whether to seek it. The way that I understand it is that there'll be a roundtable meeting with everyone input there. But I also would point out that we saw the feds take the case of Luigi Mangione
Yeah.
in New York, and that because of the terrorism aspect there. And that's always a factor, I think, in mass shootings. So that I don't know enough about, what kind of writings or what kind of information that they've gleaned from his electronic devices, and I'm sure they're still going through all of that. But that kind of information might better inform where this goes.
It's interesting looking at Phoenix Ikner because when the sheriff said that he was the suspect in this case and that he was known to the sheriff's office because he was part of like a group that's supposed to be a leadership council for the local youth, and you search his name, and that was the first thing. Like as I was watching that news conference, you search the name, and a press release from 2021 comes up saying that he's been announced as this bridge between the community of the sheriff's office and the local youth. And you're like, this is the last person you would expect to commit something like this. But then you hear about some of the political beliefs he has, and I'm not getting political in terms of what they were, but they were enough that there were people who said that they kind of creeped him out because they were so aggressive. When you look at the profile and what we know about him thus far, how does this fit in with the typical profile we've seen in cases like this?
Well, it makes me really sad that we're talking about the typical profile of a school
Yeah,
shooter. They should be rare enough that there isn't a typical profile, but here we are. Um, it's I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I'm not an expert witness, but if past informs us, you see a lot of angry young white males that are generally the shooters in these cases. Um, and in this case, some of the beliefs that he was espousing were really troubling.
yeah,
At even some of the, I think he was at a political meeting, and they asked him not to return because of the things that he was
right.
saying. And you would think that they're for a political advocacy group that maybe there would be an open floor for free speech. So to me, that indicates I can't imagine how far in left field some of the things that he said were. But yikes, if a college, uh, the free speech type college group is asking you not to return, he must have
Right.
been really scaring the people that were there.
Yeah. And it's just, you think of that as one of the red flags that potentially, had someone intervened. But it seemed like, at least on the surface, from some of his work in the community, that he was someone that potentially you wouldn't expect to be doing something like this. I think in the public, we might take for granted, you as somebody who worked in a prosecutor's office and now in the world of criminal defense, we probably take for granted in a case like this that there's going to be a conviction and that he'll eventually spend the rest of his life in prison. It's not that simple. What type of pressure under prosecutors are under right now in a case where they it seems like they would have a lot of evidence? What are they doing as they would prepare their case to go up against Phoenix Ikner?
So, like I said, I'm not in that office anymore, but body cam is ubiquitous these days on with law enforcement. And I recall that when I was in Broward, when Parkland happened, they were having people like me who had enough years of experience that they thought we could handle it. Come in and watch body cam for them because there was I think they estimated there was like 6,000 hours of body cam that needed to be gone through. So, and some of it's going to be like directing traffic and pointing here and you walk over there and just really, stuff that's incredibly boring. And then the next video could be something incredibly traumatizing coming in from these officers. So the first move is to go through all the body cam because you're on a college campus. You're also going to have all kinds of surveillance footage from different angles. So that's going to be another factor. You're also going to have badges, swiping into buildings, swiping out of buildings. I get the feeling they're probably going to be able to track his movements throughout the campus. We also have license plate readers. I know he was in a vehicle when he got there, so I'd be able to figure out where and when the car was, and where it came from. I believe he was living at home. I'm not sure if I have that correct, but what time he would have left his house. We have traffic cams and bus cams. I mean, we're going to have um, a full timeline of events, probably by the minute, by the time this comes out. And the fact of the matter is, his phone and his computer and any other electronic devices like an iPad that he was
Mhm.
using, those are going to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb. Text messages are invaluable. You don't know what he's been emailing, you don't know what he's been Googling. A lot of that is going to inform what kind of penalties we're going to see the state seek in this case.
And just lastly, I mean, it's unfortunate that there's been too many cases of this, whether it's a school shooting or a mass shooting at some other location. Just what has it been like in Tallahassee for the last week as someone who lives there, just as people have come to grips with what happened on campus?
So I didn't go to Florida State. My husband did. My brother did. But the campus is really the center of this community, and FAMU is up here as well. And the two campuses like abut. That's the Florida A&M.
Yep.
So the two campuses abut, and sometimes you can take classes on either campus. And I have interns that are at FSU. I mean, the feeling is that this was a freak thing, but I go back to the fact that there are kids on that campus that this wasn't their first school shooting. I
Yeah.
mean, like, where are we in the world where, like, by the time you graduate college, you might have been through two school shootings? It,
Yeah. It's yeah. It's hard to
I mean,
keep track.
it's,
It's Yeah, it's just and it's just something that unfortunately I think in the news world it ends up, this is a case we'll continue to follow, but um, it's just something that you live with for the rest of your life. Like if you've been through something like that, if you've covered something like that, not that they're the same thing, but there's just so many of them, but they, one unfortunately in some ways can blend into the next, which is just kind of a sad reality that we're in, I would say.
yeah, if I have any advice, it's maybe to not become desensitized to this kind of a thing. We should be as outraged as we were during Columbine or after Sandy Hook. And I know some of the FSU students were marching to the Capitol yesterday, and I wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, just so incredibly well put. Kathleen Bogenschutz, thank you for taking the time to be with us. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime.
Thanks for having me.
The Tallahassee campus, where roughly about 45,000 students go to school, is trying to get back to some sense of normal. Classes resumed on Monday. For On the Case presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.